The royals owe me. Harry owes me. Meghan owes me. What I've been through, I should be rewarded for.
The question of what might have happened if Meghan Markle had never given birth to her children, I'm not exaggerating. This isn't a seedy subreddit, a boring gossip blog, or... This originated within the household. Thomas Markle, father, made the statement public. Now that Meghan has frozen her eggs, her brother is reinforcing the rumor that she underwent a hysterectomy. Does that sound right to you? She supposedly underwent a hysterectomy, the surgical removal of the uterus, because, if I say it wrong, it would be considered blasphemy in those remarks. How in the world did she manage to have 2 children biologically if she had it removed? This is a subject that no one in the mainstream is willing to address, so here we go. The math simply doesn't work for that, and I'm not good at math, so the fact that I can accomplish it is pretty good. And now the further you delve into this timeline, the more bizarre it gets, because this reportedly all happened before Harry even came into the picture. But Meghan was still married to Treble Engelson, working on suits and trying to establish her brand. Trevor did suggest I suppose there are videos out there. Trevin mentioned mentioning this. And so how did she go from that to suddenly being the glowing royal mom of 2 with 0 explanation and nothing adding up? I'm just saying this isn't just some juicy gossip anymore. This is a plot hole in the royal script, baby, and people are starting to notice.
The Duchess of Sussex talks publicly for the very first time about her father and her half-sister, Samantha Markle. She tells Oprah how she felt when she found out her dad was working with the tabloids.
And I said, that's really nice. And then the next call was like, he's British. And I said, well, that's really nice. And then eventually the third time around it was like, he's a prince.
Now let's rewind to the egg freezing point for a sec. According to insiders, Meghan had her eggs frozen. During her first marriage, the one nobody talks about. She was married to Treble Engelson, a Hollywood producer way before Prince Harry ever showed up with his ginger curls and a royal title. Now freezing your eggs is totally normal. A lot of ladies do it. No judgment there, but here's the catch. Egg storage is not cheap. We're talking about $8K to $9K per month at certain high-end clinics. That's not it. I'm working on USA Network money. That's I have passive income and a trust fund kind of money. You know what I mean. And Meghan, at the time, was reportedly making roughly $7K an episode on Suits. Yeah, I wonder how much Har Specter was making. Which sounds great until you remember she wasn't even in all the episodes. Her real screen time across the entire series adds up to, wait for it, roughly 2 hours total. That's it. So let's be serious. You think she was paying premium egg storage costs on a cable actress budget when she was still hustling for work, writing blog posts and doing hot yoga promotional? It's giving the eggs didn't stay frozen long type of stuff. You know what I mean? And now, fast forward, she allegedly lost access to those eggs. She apparently underwent a hysterectomy, and still somehow we're told she gave birth to Archie and Lily Bett like it was nothing. Do you see why people are like, what's going on? You can't present a timeline like that and then get furious when people start connecting dots. That's not conspiracy. That's just, basic logic.
Once they did, I remember being told there was a huge headline like, we found him or we've got him. We're talking about someone's father. And from that point, the tabloids, they moved into the apartment next door and across from him.
And Harry asked for her hand over the phone. And I said, you're a gentleman. Promise me you'll never raise your hand against my daughter, and of course I give you my...
Now let's dive into the surrogacy whisperers, because it gets really dirty pretty fast. And this theory has been around for years. It started with speculations that Meghan may have used a surrogate but didn't want the public to know. And that alone is okay, but if someone wants privacy, that's fine too. But it's just everything around it that's just kind of weird about it. The birth certificate. How first it didn't have Meghan's royal title in there and Archie's paperwork, and then it did? There was a lot of back and forth and editing on the document, and that's not very common in normal situations. You can't simply, keep changing things like that. And even officials were confused by the anomalies in there, and they actually sought out King Charles directly, asking for more clarification. And since when are people reaching out directly to the king about someone's, papers like that? That only happens when someone is seriously odd behind the scenes. It's giving off a lot of cover-up vibes, and instead of clearing it up, they just, slapped the royal title back on and kept it pushing. So now people are wondering why the edit, why the confusion, and why the back and forth on something as basic as a birth certificate. If it's all legit, then why all the odd cleanup behind the scenes? There's probably a lot more to that, and you don't go through these lanes unless there's something to hide. In my opinion. All right, now let's speak about it. Moon bump.
Did it feel like betrayal when you found out your father was working with the tabloids?
I'm just trying to decide if I'm comfortable even talking about that.
Because if the birth certificate stuff made you raise an eyebrow, this is the part that made the internet fully lose its mind. There's this film. I'm sure you've seen it where Meghan's in the hospital room. She's twerking, dancing, having this little joyful celebration with a large belly. And when it dropped, everyone just, lost it. Everyone started talking about it. But why? Well, mostly because that bump was moving like a prop. Not like a baby belly, like a prop. And when you zoom in, the tummy does move a bit funny. It folds a little weird. It flattens a little weird. It pops back a little bit weird. Doesn't seem natural. And when people slowed it down frame by frame, folks were wild, and they froze it. They screen filmed it, and they compared it, to an actual pregnancy movement. And essentially, everyone's agreeing that this isn't real, and some even dubbed it Moon Bumpgate. And it was during a time where, hospitals were incredibly stringent back then, in 2020, and, pregnant women couldn't even bring their partners in. No filming, no gas, nothing. Yeah, here's Meghan conducting a glam shot in a hospital gown with excellent lighting. Not sure how that happened. Now, what kind of access do you need to waltz into a hospital room during a pandemic and start shooting TikToks with a camera team? It's not adding up at all, folks. We weren't just confused, we were outraged because if this whole moment was staged, that's not just a falsehood. That's a betrayal of public trust during a global crisis. And let's be real, it wouldn't be the first time celebrities have staged this. It's a thing for sure, and it's not even really shocking anymore. But when it's a royal during that time and the whole narrative is being used to build a brand, then it's not just weird. It's pretty crazy that it's calculated like that, It's an insane world we live in, let's be fair. Because I already hear the defenders in the comments typing in all caps. Bumps move. Every pregnancy is different. Leave her alone and listen. They're not totally wrong, Some OBGYNs and midwives. Here I am mansplaining to you guys. But anyways, I've actually spoken up about this, attempting to stop down the conspiracy spiral. They mentioned lumps can absolutely shift, flatten, or seem strange depending on the baby's location. One midwife even said she's seen far freakier belly movements during contractions, like alien movie level things. Okay, I can see that, but
It was, if we're going to use the word betrayal, it's because when I asked him, which is also a really key point in all this, they don't report the news, they create the news.
Why people's trust just evaporates on the spot when they hear that. So even if the bump was real, even if the whole pregnancy was 100% above board, the lack of raw, candid proof is what fuels the fire. It's what keeps people asking, why is this all so weird? Because when you're playing royalty in the digital age, you don't just need receipts, you need unedited ones. And Meghan, of course, isn't giving any of them. All right, so let's speak about the go-to excuse of this, Meghan Markle's fan base, where they construct this force field around her, just claiming she's just private. And it's like this magic phrase her fan base uses to shut down any criticism. She's safeguarding her children. She doesn't owe us an explanation. She's just like other celebrities. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, but now hang on. You don't get to say I'm private after doing a tell-all with Oprah, a 6-part Netflix docuseries, a Spotify contract, a memoir, and endless paparazzi setups on the beach in Montecito with her $20 million estate in the background. That's not privacy. That's performance, baby. That's curated exclusivity. That's strategic mystery sold at full MF retail price, kid. And what's worse, it's a selective emotional access she gives us. 1 minute she's doing a show on motherhood, and the next she's evading basic questions about her kids like they're classified state secrets. You can't have it both ways. and you can't believe you can create your brand around being a relatable mom while never showing a single, unscripted moment with your kids. You can't throw around phrases like as a mother while everything the public sees looks like it's been staged, reviewed, and filtered 5 times before posting. And that's what people are picking up on. Not the, hey, not all the other things that she's, seems to be, saying, that's going on, and something just doesn't track here. And the tighter Meghan, attempts to control her image, the more natural it starts to feel like she's not protecting the kids. She's only protecting that image, baby. Ever since she got her titles out or whatever they did with that stuff, she's been trying to be this specific type of person, All right. Unlike Meghan, I'm going to be, pretty real about this. Let's keep it real. You want to know why people are questioning Meghan's parenthood, because the actual tape doesn't help her case at all. Have you guys seen this? It doesn't help her at all. There's this one piece of footage she's carrying, a toddler, and I don't really know how to explain it, except to say it seems like she's never handled a child in her life. The kid is flailing, and Meghan's gripping them like a handbag. No eye contact, no soft, mom voice or anything like that. Just a blank face, tight stance, and death behind the eyes. And it happened, several times. Red carpets, family events. When have you seen anything natural? I haven't. Even in their own Netflix doc, the scenes with the kids feel like they were shot on the green screen. The family bonding moments were rehearsed 5 times and it still fell off. I can see that for sure. Then just another take, family, Now here's where it goes into full, simulation mode. There was a Disneyland outing. I'm sure you guys heard. It sounds normal enough, except somebody observed something bizarre. The girls shown strolling with Meghan on day 1 didn't appear like the girls seen on day 2. Same general outfit, same context, but the face was different. The ambiance was different. Even the height appeared odd, and immediately the internet exploded with this insane theory. Are they utilizing standing youngsters? Like we're talking body duplicates for toddlers. I know how absurd that sounds, but ask yourself, how did we come to the point where people even think that's possible? Answer. And the solution is when everything feels so produced, people start assuming everything is staged because you know what authentic looks like. Chaotic, frank, crazy. And nothing Meghan does at all. Nothing that she does at all. It feels like, true? It simply feels messy. It feels like it was passed through a legal team and 3 PR managers before hitting the timetable. And which leads me to the wildest question yet. All right, now, you can burn me at the stake, but I think we should quit dancing around it. Let's just imagine, for the sake of argument, that the worst suspicions are true. That Meghan employed a surrogate, that the pregnancies were staged, and that the bump was a prop and the babies were brought in through a secret arrangement. That alone is absurd. But here's a real scandal. Why is the palace playing along? Why were birth certificates modified? Why did Harry strive so hard to grant the kids HR positions when Queen Elizabeth explicitly said no? Why are Meghan and Harry still included on the official royal family website when they've trashed the monarchy publicly several times? In many different formats, right? We're not talking about a couple that departed quietly. We're talking about 2 persons that drop royal secrets like a tiny Wayne diss track and still get treated like they're part of the firm. So what gives? Either the palace is entirely asleep at the wheel, or they're complicit. Either way, nobody's checking the receipts, nor is anyone I don't think anyone really cares, honestly. They're just giving us a show, They're just, keeping us amused and stuff like that. But anyways, here's the scariest option, because what if this isn't just Meghan's performance? What if this is one gigantic PR cover-up backed by an institution that's attempting to survive, controversy after scandal? You know what? If this isn't about one woman lying, what if it's about safeguarding the illusion of royalty itself? And at that point, when everyone from Hollywood to Buckingham Palace is playing pretend, who's really being deceived? And I think the answer is us. So here we are, a rumored hysterectomy. Vanishing egg storage birth docs edited like movie scripts, foam bump conspiracies, moon bump gate baby, awkward kid moments in a royal family that says absolutely nothing. No denial, no receipts, no, here's proof. Now stop the madness. Just silence. And let me tell you that silence is loud. You know what I'm saying? And it's louder than any press release, because when you've had billions of people side-eyeing your entire maternity journey, and you're still out here peddling the fairy tale, that's not private anymore. That's storytelling, baby. And that's brand building, baby. And we know Meghan Markle is a brand builder. Not an excellent one, but she's a brand builder. And now the longer this goes on, the more people are wondering if Meghan's greatest role wasn't in Suits. What if it's in this? Dun dun dun. Anyways, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Let me know in the comments if Meghan's cool or not. You know, what do you people think about her? Let me know.